classroom sits nearly empty after white students refuse to attend their newly desegregated school. New York, 1964. Dang. This is the history that is not getting taught. New York, 1964. Are you kidding me? And for some reason, when we talk about the American South, when we talk about segregation, suddenly everyone hates history. Suddenly talking about history is equated with being a victim. And it's bizarre to me. Like, we talk about all kinds of stuff that happened in world history. All kinds of bad things. There's lectures, there's courses, there's shows, there's movies, there's all this stuff. And that's academic pursuit. But for some reason, when I'm talking about what happened 50 to 70 years ago in my own country, I'm race baiting. I'm victim baiting. Make it make sense to me, please. What is it about this why can't we talk about this? Race mixing is communism. Stop the race mixing. Race mixing is, what is this? What the actual H is this? Hi, I'm Danielle Romero. Thank you so much for being with me here on my channel where I talk about American identity and family stories. And I found something that I wanted to do together with you right now. It was a photo collage of 33 photos from segregation in America, kind of going through some historical stuff. And as soon as I saw the first photo, I was like, okay, I gotta stop. I gotta pump brakes on this because I want to do this together. And one of the reasons I want to do this together is because if you're new to this channel, you know that I'm learning in public right now. My mom's grandma was from Louisiana, and she was what many call passing for white, moved to New York where I was from. And basically this whole channel kicked off with me trying to understand her story and then trying to understand her story some more, because sometimes if you didn't grow up in something, you just don't really get it. I can't really ever get it. And so I have really enjoyed the liminal space, studying what does it mean to be white? What does it mean to be black? And the way that Americans have historically looked at that, which is pretty binary. And so I want to look at this together and just talk about it. I want to react to it. And I'm not going to have all the historical context for these photos. And that's where you come in. If I'm missing something, if you can add something to it, please jump in, because like I said, I'm learning in public. We're doing this together. And I'm really hoping that these are some of the conversations that will heal our country. Just sitting down together. I may not agree with you. You may not agree with me, but that's okay. Let's just sit together at the table and look at these and talk about them. Come with me and let's go check out these photos. So this says 33 photos of segregation that show a country divided by race. And I'm really excited to go through these. All right, I don't know the best place to put me on the screen, so I may have to move myself around so I'm not in the way. Okay, so this one says, African-American children look through the fence at a playground legally forbidden from them. Alabama, 1956. I hate this. Right out of the gates, I hate this. I'm a mom. I have 3 kids, 10 and under. And I think what is so terrible about this, this is a beautifully composed photo, first of all, because you can't see their faces and you're kind of imagining, the disappointment on a kid's face when they're confused. They don't totally understand. And it reminds me of when my kids sometimes hear things that they can't make sense of, like real evil in the world, and they can't make sense of it. And they're like, why does this happen? Why would someone do this? But this is 1956, and it's really not that long. 2 men drink from segregated water fountains, location and date unspecified. This, I think, is a pretty famous picture, and it says for colored only. And you've got this janky little fountain down here. I always am shocked when I see colored and just retroactively thinking about what the process was for deciding who is colored, especially being from New York. And I know that New York dealt with a lot of these same things, even though maybe not to the same extent, or it wasn't as widespread, but yeah, it's just always shocking to see that word there. This says, Elizabeth Eckford ignores the hostile screams and stares of fellow students on her first day of school. She was one of the 9 African-American students whose integration into Arkansas's Little Rock Central High School was ordered by federal court following legal action by the NAACP, September 6, 1957. What I always think about when I see these photos is this person here, her kids, if she had kids, okay, so let's say she's a teenager in the 50s, probably alive. She's probably 70 years old right now. Where's this lady at? Her kids. What would it be like to see your mom or your grandma being that person? I think sometimes people just don't think about stuff like that. It's the same way with social media now, where I'm like, dude, why are you making that comment with your name attached? Like, are you kidding me? And that's always what I think of when I see photos like that. During the Freedom Rider travels throughout the South to protest segregated buses, one bus was set on fire by an angry mob. Luckily, everyone on the bus was able to escape without injury. Location unspecified, 1861. So this was the year my mom was born. And if you've seen my mom, I've done interviews and she's sat down and talked with me. I think most people would just say like, oh, she's white. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe you would have some bias based on like knowing the family story. But her grandma for sure would be on a segregated bus, and I'm sure was on segregated things and did her best to leave. And it is extremely hard for me to reconcile the way that I grew up, the lack of knowledge that I had, maybe the sacrifices that were made that maybe you disagree with, they shouldn't have been made or whatever, to protect the family. It's really crazy to me to think my mom's grandma could have been caught in something like this. Maybe she was. I really don't know. But if you grow up being told that you're white, whatever white means, and then being faced with pictures like this and saying, well, was this, is this why? Is this what happened to my family? It shouldn't take that, though. It shouldn't take a personal connection to something to see that something is terrible. But I think sometimes we're so a part of our community, whatever that community, however we define that community, right, that sometimes we don't always pay enough attention to our neighbors. Okay, 15-year-old Johnny Gray points a warning finger at one of the two white boys who tried to force him and his sister Mary from the sidewalk as they walked to school in Little Rock, Arkansas on September 16th, 1958. I'm just going to try and make mine a little bigger here. That little girl. Look at that little girl. I don't know what it is about the kid wants. It's just really 1958. Okay, this little girl, she's like 8 years old or something. Okay, she's like probably a little older than my parents, and that's what I'm saying. Like, so many people want to just say, "Shut up about this stuff. Stop talking about it. Stop being a victim." Which like is always weird to me too, because it's like, I'm not saying I have this experience. I'm like, let's just talk about it. I'm trained as a historian. I love history. And for some reason, when we talk about the American South, when we talk about segregation, suddenly everyone hates history. Suddenly talking about history is equated with being a victim. And it's bizarre to me. Like, we talk about all kinds of stuff that happened in world history, all kinds of bad things. There's lectures, there's courses, there's shows, there's movies, there's all this stuff. And that's academic pursuit. But for some reason, when I'm talking about what happened 50 to 70 years ago in my own country, I'm race baiting. I'm victim baiting. Make it make sense to me, please. What is it about this why can't we talk about this? I'm sure this little girl would have some things to share. Alabama Governor George Wallace stands at the door of the University of Alabama in protest of integration. Are you kidding me? June 11th, 1963. I'm just looking at everybody's faces on this. I don't know what to say. I honestly am speechless on this one. Spring of 1963 brought protest against police brutality and discrimination in Birmingham, Alabama. Police Chief Bull Connor famously turned fire hoses on protesters and used attack dogs in his own fist to physically beat unarmed people, including women and children. I don't know a lot about this. I need you guys to fill in some of the stuff I don't know here. The people who took these photos, it's like, whatever the reason is that they took them, I'm so glad that they did. I homeschool my kids, and it's May 31st is when I'm recording this, and I'm getting ready for the next school year already. I'm sitting down and trying to figure out, because my oldest is going into 5th grade, and we have TCAP tests that she's going to be taking that I can't administer here in Tennessee. And so I was just kind of making sure I have all the stuff, and I'm going to be real heavy on primary sources this year with her in particular. And one of the things we have to study is the Civil War. And so I have some books on that included real pictures, and they have real pictures of Civil War battles where you see people dead piled up, and they're not graphic and they're black and white, but the kids were asking me, like, why would they take pictures of this? I'm like, well, first of all, this is really the first war where we were able to document it that way. But secondly, we need a record of what happened. We need a record of what happened. We need the terrible reality to be preserved. It doesn't mean that we need to glorify it or we need to be sitting with it all the time, but we need it preserved. We need it documented so that it can't be forgotten. And I think that is what is so powerful about these images to me. A nervous young girl sits in the front row. She is the only black girl in her newly integrated class in Tennessee, 1957. I wonder why those parents are there. Are they there because of the integration? I don't see her parents. As a mom, this is breaking my heart. And second, I have taught kids from 1st to 8th grade. And that's breaking my heart too. I would love to know the story behind this, especially since it's here in Tennessee. I wonder if it was in Nashville or where I am. Benny Oliver, former Jackson, Mississippi policeman, viciously kicks Memphis Norman, an African-American student from nearby Wiggins who had been waiting along with 2 other students to be served at a segregated lunch counter. The rumor of possible civil rights actions in town caused onlookers to cheer the beating. May 28, 1963. This is a little bit obscured. I don't know if I can make it bigger. Google has like an ad here. He's curled up here under this man's shoe. Look at this. I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a second. This is rough. This is hard. 10 out of 34. Demonstrators protest against the integration of Little Rock, Arkansas Central High School, 1959. This is the one that I saw that I used for a thumbnail. And it is messing me up so bad to see this. I literally thought this was like a bad AI. Race mixing is communism. Stop the race mixing. Race mixing is... What is this? What the actual H is this? And what sucks to see is I see myself as an American. I love America. I'm proud to be American. My grandpa dropped out of high school my Italian grandpa dropped out of high school after the bombing of Pearl Harbor to enroll in the Navy to join his brothers. They were in the Army at that point. And he risked everything. He loved America. He taught me to love America. What I hate is to see the American flag next to trash like this. Because one, if you've been on my channel for any amount of time or you know anything about American history, you know America has always been a mixed nation. We've always been mixed. It's crazy. Like as soon as people start meeting with each other, they start having kids together. Whether it's consensual, not consensual, and everything in between, it's going to happen. And so to call race mixing is communism, first of all, I'm trying to just like understand what that has to do with communism. But the other thing I hate is seeing the flag. And the other thing I really hate seeing is Christianity being brought into this, because I'm a follower of Christ. I'm a Christian, and I hate to see the way people misrepresent Christ, because it is a terrible embarrassment to me to see things being misrepresented and attempts and the confusion that creates. And so I feel the same way here about the flag, seeing these things together. And again, I'm looking at these people. Who's this guy? My husband uses this phrase. I don't know if you want me to say it on here. It's actually a phrase that my oldest daughter used to say when she was 3. It was like kind of a name of derision. Like if she didn't like someone, she'd be like, "Who's that bubdy?" Like not buddy, but like bubdy. And one time my husband used it on a guy who was being rude to him. He was just like, "Okay, bubdy." And the guy like freaked out. And like, that's how I feel about this guy at the microphone. I'm like, "Who's this bubdy?" Like, I don't know what else you could say about it. Who is the bubdy? Like, seriously, this is insane. And it's terrible because, again, it doesn't matter if you believe in the 1-drop rule, you don't. People are they white? Are they black? Are they red? Are they yellow? Brown? Doesn't matter. I'm here because of the result of race mixing. Like we can define it like that. And yeah, I hate this. Original caption here says, despite a court ruling on desegregating buses, white and blacks continue to be divided by their own choice. Texas, 1956. This guy's proud of himself over here. Who's this guy? Here's the thing. I don't know if that's true, but I can tell you that if I was traveling as a woman alone or with my kids, there's no way that I would put them in risk to prove a point. Like, I would just sit in the back of the bus with the kids because I don't want there to be an issue. I think if you're in a situation where you're able to take more personal risk without risking your family or things like that. But I have a feeling that these people probably just didn't want to deal with it. There's like, I just need to get home. Like, I don't want to be a hero right now. I don't want to get knocked all over the place. Like, I just need to get home. And I can't blame them. A classroom sits nearly empty after white students refuse to attend their newly desegregated school. New York, 1964. Dang. This is the history that is not getting taught. New York, 1964. Are you kidding me? I really doubt that most New Yorkers would believe this. Or that maybe they not even believe, but I doubt they know it. Durham, North Carolina, 1940. This is a really famous picture. I've used it. Colored waiting room. And also, what's the waiting room? Is it standing outside? Is that the waiting room? Let me know. Is that what they're trying to say here? African American students arrive in Baltimore, Maryland's newly integrated Southern high school as white students walk behind with a sign reading "Southern Don't Want Negroes, 1954." This is a place where I would have a hard time. Like, this is where I'd probably overreact to that. It's like, what did they want to have happen? I'm not saying that my experience was what of the Black community, but I'm going to tell you the reason I'm here is because I have ancestors who were brought over from Africa across the Middle Passage, became enslaved in Louisiana, and that's my maternal line. I don't know what you want people to do. They're here. Like, this is something that has been discussed since before Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, right? And I did a video on this where they were saying, well, can we send people to these colonies so that like they're free, but they're not here anymore. Like, at this point, 1954, it's like, these are Americans. These people don't belong in Africa. They don't belong in anywhere else. Like, they're Americans. Like, I'm sorry that you don't like how dark they are. Like, what? You know what I'm saying? And that's what I just don't get. Like, I don't know what they want to have happen. The Southern don't want Negroes. Well, 200 years ago, y'all were bringing them over because you wanted them so bad to be here working for you. So it's like, I don't know. I just bought a book about this for my kids this school year. 6-year-old Ruby Bridges is escorted from school by U.S. Marshals. Bridges was the first African-American child to desegregate the all-white William Frantz Elementary School in Louisiana during the New Orleans desegregation, 1960. Yeah, this little girl with these men. Look at her with her little shoes and socks and her little bag. If one of my kids had to be escorted by U.S. Marshals to go in and out of a public building or a school building, and these parents, like, these are brave parents. And it's a big risk. And I don't know if I'd feel comfortable making my kid be the one to do it. I don't know. I don't really know. You know, I'm not in that situation, so it's hard to think about it. But, yeah. A white woman hurriedly bars the way as African American people were about to enter the lunch counter of this downtown department store in Memphis to protest the segregation policy of the establishment, 1961. 1961, it's crazy to see these real people and just be like, what's this lady's story? Like, is she doing this because she doesn't want to lose her job? Is she just a really, like, wimpy person? Is she a terrible person? Like, what are these people thinking? Like, you're just gonna, like, are you thinking, okay, do we make a thing about this? Do we not? I think I could just snap. Kenyan student David Mobidi enters segregation for the first time in a bus terminal, Georgia, 1960. This is fascinating. So it's not an American. It's just someone who's coming over from another country. And they're like, yeah, you go sit over there. Would love to look into him and see if he's talked about that. A boy drinks from a colored water fountain in Halifax, North Carolina, in 1938. I have used this photo a few times. Just seeing the kids, you know, and the way it's like colored. Like, and again, I know I'm probably going to get flagged to the moon and back, but one of the more shocking things based on what I was told about my family was finding out my mom's uncle, his birth certificate, he's listed as colored. I don't have my grandmother's long form birth certificate, so she's probably listed as colored as well. But, you know, what that meant at the time, you know, it wasn't just an observation. There was a lot attached to that word. An African-American military policeman on a motorcycle in front of the colored MP entrance, Columbus, Georgia, 1942. Military police colored. I've never heard of that, and I didn't know about that. Cool boots, though. Atlanta, Georgia, 1956. Colored waiting room. Interstate passengers. New York, date unspecified. I like seeing the New York ones because I think it kind of flies in the face of what people from New York believe about ourselves, you know? Colored taxi cab stand. I wonder how does this work if they saw you and they weren't sure where you belong. I kind of understand this idea of like passing. Like, how does it start? I bet it doesn't start with this whole thing of like, I want to reject my whole family. I bet it was like, I wonder if I could sit over there and no one would notice. Or, you know, I wonder if I could slide in at the lunch counter and if I present this way and try to do this or that, like, could I pass? And if someone has a question, I could say, oh, I'm from this country. That's okay. Okay. You know, I'm curious. And I bet that's often how it started. Whites only taxis, Georgia, 1962. White only Beck's cab. Just infiltrate your whole life, like everything you do, right? How you travel, how you eat, how you go to school, like how you get water. Inside an all-black classroom, Virginia, 1953. From 1959 to 1961, there were no public school facilities in Prince Edward County, Virginia, for the estimated 1,700 black children there. The 1,400 white children attended private schools financed by the state, county, and private contributions made in lieu of tax payments. This photo shows the black students attending school in a one-room shack. That's crazy. You've got like these little babies right here and these big kids here. This one, a young man drinks from a colored fountain at a streetcar terminal, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 1939. Instead of employing a separate entrance, some entire establishments were simply designated for colored people. Mississippi, circa 1937. When did this get painted over? You know, I'm sure it's not still there. I'm curious. To gain access to the colored entrance of the theater, you'd better be able to ascend an outdoor flight of stairs. One of my cousins in Louisiana was telling me when I first met with him and talked with him about some of the family stuff. He was saying that there was like a little door. I think it was in Monroe, Louisiana. There's like the main entrance and there's like a weird skinny tiny door, and you'd have like slide in that door, then like take a secret like set of stairs up to the back part and of the theater, so you'd be up in the back. And he was telling a story about a cousin that was visiting from California, and his grandpa was from Louisiana. And he went to the movie theater and he was sitting the white area, but it wasn't as segregated, I guess, in California. And he realized people like looking at him, and he suddenly realized I shouldn't be in the white section, like just panicking. And man, that story has stuck with me. Assigned directly opposite the Sojourner Truth Homes, a new U.S. federal housing project in Detroit, Michigan, a riot was caused by white neighbors attempting to prevent African American tenants from moving in. 1942. We want white tenants in our white community. Well, tell me how you really feel. Demonstrators picketing over lunch counter segregation, Georgia, 1960. I love seeing these images. I'm going to save these to show my kids when we study this later this fall. The presence of segregation is the absence of democracy. Jim Crow must go. A white teenager tears up the sign of a black protester picketing variety stores protesting their segregation policies. Tallahassee, Florida, 1960. Look at this. I don't know, it says segregation maybe is unjust or something. He says, just gotta rip it up. You can see people looking like in the back, just standing there watching. I would love to just have these two people sit down, face each other on camera, and have a conversation. Wouldn't you like to see that? You know, because I think one thing that's important is that people can have changes, right? People can change and have a change of heart, have a Damascus Road moment, right? And so I would love to know, like, this young man, what ended up happening with him. Because here's the thing, like, what is he, 20 there in the 60s? So, you know, maybe still alive, like, but if you're walking around 2000 to 2010, how you see people around you changed? Or like, are you still this person secretly or maybe loudly? A boy watches as a crowd of segregationist demonstrators walk to Arkansas's Little Rock Central High to protest the first African-American students in a white school in 1957. Holy cow, this photo is wild. It's just interesting to me to see how much emotions really take precedent over law sometimes. And you know, I honestly, I may get some hate for this, and that's okay. I'm okay with people protesting something that they don't agree with, even if I think they're total idiots, total jerks for protesting. But it's like when it gets violent, when it gets mean-spirited, people are afraid for their health in their bodies, in their life. Like, that's a line that is completely inappropriate to me. Like, I'm okay with people standing out there and being like, I don't agree with this. Okay, fine. What's happening anyway? You know, and seeing this little boy, what's this kid thinking? I'd be running the other way. A woman and a child, both of whom refused to identify themselves, march in front of the Arkansas Capitol in Little Rock to protest the scheduled integration of the city's high schools in 1957. Are you kidding me? That's what I'm saying. You want to protest, fine, but you're going to do it secretly. You're going to hide your face to protest. So he's saying, save our Christian America. Race mixing is communism. Again, as a Christian, this is upsetting. I want to put a verse up here that I always think of. And I'm like, are these people not reading the Bible? Galatians 3, verses 28 to 29. There is no Jew nor Greek. There is neither slave nor free. There is neither male nor female, for you are all in one Christ Jesus. And if you are Christ's, then you're Abraham's offspring, heirs according to the promise. If you're a Christian and you are still holding on to this stuff, like, there's a problem with what you're professing. And I want to read another verse to you. I was actually reading through the book of Ephesians with my kids every morning last week, and we talked a lot about this verse. It's from Ephesians 2. This is the Apostle Paul was writing to the church at Ephesus. They were the Gentiles, and the Jews wanted nothing to do with the Gentiles. They didn't like that they were being brought into God's family. And I want to read what this says. It says, but now in Christ Jesus, you who used to be far away have been brought near by the blood of Christ. For he is our peace, the one who made both groups into one, and who destroyed the middle wall of partition, the hostility, when he nullified in his flesh the law of the commandments and decrees. He did this to create himself one new man out of two, thus making peace, and to reconcile them both in one body to God through the cross. And I'll go down and say, he came and preached peace to you who were far off, and peace to those who were near, so that through him we both have access in one spirit to the Father. So now you are no longer foreigners and non-citizens, but you are fellow citizens with the saints and members of God's household. And this idea of people who don't belong together, who don't get along together. In this instance, we have the Jews and the Gentiles, and he's saying that when you come together, and again, I'm speaking as a Christian when I'm looking at this, that true Christians, right, recognize that we have been brought near to God by something we don't deserve, but that means that we can't be looking at our neighbor and saying they don't deserve it, they can't have it, I don't want to be with them while it's happening. So it's stunning to me to see something that's like, save our Christian America. Like, who do you think you are? I hope they had a change of heart. Last two. Soldiers escort the first African American students to integrate Little Rock, Arkansas Central High School on September 24th, 1957. Can you imagine? So let me hop back. That was, like, I knew it would feel like a lot. But it's a lot. It's a lot to see people's faces. I think it's important. Pictures are so important. Some of those things I didn't know about. Some of them were familiar to me. Let me know how you were feeling watching this and where you're at. And if you have any recommendations for anything that I can sit down and do together with you. Again, I'm learning in public. Like, I'm a teacher, but I'm a learner, right? And I can't teach unless I can recognize that I need to still be learning. And so help me learn, right? As I'm doing this with you. So let me know. And if you would like to support the channel, again, you can connect with me on Patreon at NYTN. Otherwise, I'll see you soon.